She's the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York. Follow her voice, a straight dog is nice. She's the pushy broad from the Bronx, oh yeah. Don't be surprised if you wanna listen twice. Make decisions, find the right choice. Know yourself better, find your own voice. It's okay if you need help today, cause everybody needs a little push. From the pushy broad from the Bronx, New York.
Good morning and welcome, Transformation Talk Network listeners. My name is Stewart and I am the pushy broad from the Bronx. Welcome to my show, Recovery Recharged, where we share advice and support from experts in addiction, recovery, and life. I love the title of this show, and when you hear it, you're going to really want to listen in. Okay. Today's title is Spend Less Time Working and More Time Living. How could you not want to do that? I want to know how to do that. I have business coach Jenevieve Hubbard with us today, and she's going to talk to us about reverse engineering our career by starting with how we want to feel before we actually think about what we want to do. And she's also going to give us some great ideas for spending much less time working and more time living. And I cannot wait to hear from her. Let me tell you a little bit about who she is. Jenevieve is a certified business coach, a burnout recovery specialist, I have to ask her about that, and highly sensitive person who radically transforms the lives of her clients through a powerful combination of evidence-based coaching. She specializes in uncovering and healing the unconscious blocks that keep business owners from claiming the lives of themselves with ease, intention, and meaning. She facilitates workshops worldwide. She coaches private clients, and now she has graced us by being a guest with us today. The Pushy Broad from the Bronx and Recovery Recharged is really glad to welcome Jenevieve Hubbard. Good morning, Jenevieve. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
That's great. I'm so glad. Tell me how you started. This is a very bold claim. You started beforehand. Just give us a little background into your journey in this.
Well, I followed my bliss about 6 years ago. I followed my dreams and I became a wilderness-based florist. And I found myself on the tops of mountains creating these insane floral creations and getting paid for it.
Wow. If I never expected you to say that, okay? So people say often, I've followed my bliss. What led you to the journey of being in the floral business? Was this something that you wanted to do as a kid?
No, I was on my fourth miscarriage in about 3 years. And I was dealing with the level of grief that I'd never faced in my life before. And it was one of those moments where I thought, well, I'm either going to languish here in this grief, or I'm going to reach something that speaks to my soul.
You know, my sister was in the floral business a long time, and it certainly teaches you a great deal, but you took it to a whole new level. Explain how that evolved and where did you go?
Yeah, I mean, I started out as a fine artist, so I had a tendency to sort of think outside the box. And to be honest, Ellen, there were a lot of people from the fine art world that went into floral at that time. So it was really intriguing to me. I had a background in horticulture. I'd already done floral design for a few years when I went into becoming a creative director. And I had this moment where I was able to be facilitated by a coach and really check in with myself. And I realized I don't want to be a fine artist and I don't want to be a creative director. So I sold everything in my studio and I told my boss I was starting a business. And I started out selling Christmas wreaths. And within a year, I was building an arch on top of a mountain, watching an eagle soar overhead.
Oh my goodness. How exciting for you. So this was 6 years ago, and you developed this business and you were successful at it, and then you were happy. And then what?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was magical. Everything that transpired, it felt like it was this force outside of myself. I found myself on a Mercedes-Benz commercial building a floral tunnel. I was asked to be on a reality TV show, which I turned down. So it was it was in stepping into the flow, right? It's that thing we all long for, to be our most essential selves and to really step into this power. But the problem was there was some element of me avoiding my grief within that. And the more big and bold and powerful that career became, the more I stepped out of my own body and into this vision of what I wanted for my life. So there was this beautiful, perfect Instagram-worthy picture that I could share with the world, but it wasn't my experience. And it started to spiral out of control in terms of how much I had to work and how much of my body I had to give to it.
Okay, so tell us, what did that spiral look like?
Well, it ultimately looked like 10 p.m. crawling hands and knees into a bath to try to ease my back. I was dealing with a lot of physical fallout from the physical turmoil of being a florist, hauling buckets of water up mountains and all of that. And just the stress. And then also being in the events industry during COVID didn't help. So lots of scary legal situations and canceled events. And then my own fear of being a part of a super spreader event, which was a terrifying idea. It's very important to me that I'm ethos driven. It's very important to me that I'm socially responsible. So that was scary. So I just felt like I was crumbling under the pressure of it all.
And more importantly, the idea of you may have done things to distract yourself, to give you a different feeling career-wise, to have you break out of the box and do something new. But if your mental health isn't in the right place, that no matter where you are, you take those mental health difficulties and processing and grieving situations with you, no matter where you are geographically and no matter what you do for a living. So here you are. You have decided that it's time to let go of the floral business, I assume. And what led you to what you're doing today?
It was a long journey. I love what you just said, by the way. I think I was taking a mental geographical, like I was trying to escape mentally. And, many of us who have experienced any form of trauma know that it comes out in our bodies eventually. And I really feel that that's what was happening. So I really didn't know what I was going to do. It wasn't like I just woke up and thought, oh, I'm going to be a business coach. Okay, perfect, brilliant, let's do this. It was, I can't do this anymore. I've hit a wall. And it was really terrifying and tragic for me because this felt like a lifelong dream. This felt like the answer. So I felt like I was following my purpose. And so to let that go felt like a real death of myself. And it took me 2.5 to 3 years. So essentially, I just got a day job. It was just an easy kind of no-brain day job. I moved to the Pacific Northwest to be with my partner, and I just laid in the grass and stared at the sky as often as I could when I didn't have to work. And that was 3 years of that.
Well, you said some very interesting things. When I work with my clients, especially in recovery, sometimes for them it's a reinvention of sorts. They have to process grief. They have to process maybe shame and guilt, but they have to go through a shedding process, which is exactly what you did. So not only were you processing the difficulties in your life, as you said, with your fourth miscarriage, but now you are processing the end of what you thought was your lifelong career. I have felt over the years that I've had several callings. And following my bliss can take me to quite a few things I feel blissful about. And just understanding that there are more ways constantly to enrich me leaves the door open to so many other things, which I'm sure led you to this. So now let's talk about business coaching and how effective this is for you and for your clients.
Yeah, thank you for saying all that. I think that's absolutely true. And it's a good segue because there was a moment of, wow, did I make the wrong decision? And confusion. And I absolutely agree that we have several callings. There are so many different directions we can go in our own lives, and most of them are good and right and true. So this fear of not going in the right direction doesn't need to overtake us when we go through changes and having to really embrace that shedding period. And that's essentially what I work with my clients on. So some of my clients are in that deep, what I would call the burnout phase, right? I've hit a wall. I can't go any further. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't move forward. And it can feel scary. It can feel like I'm not going to be able to function as a human. So it's interesting to be able to show up as essentially an accountability partner for people who need permission to rest. They need permission to go through that shedding phase. They need permission to be human in a system that doesn't always give us time, space to be human.
I'm glad you said what you said. You talk about accountability, and I work like that with my clients as well. I explain to my clients that the accountability is really not to me at all. I tell my clients if they're not telling me, they're not telling themselves, and I act as their mirror, which means that their accountability is, can I stand up to my own scrutiny? Can I give myself permission to be in this middle space for a while? I think that's one of the biggest reasons, like you said, why people find they stay stuck, because they're so worried about being stuck and they're so uptight about doing these things that they don't give themselves a chance to turn around, face it, and say, okay, let me see what it's like in the stillness of things, right? And as coaches, we employ some things that sometimes therapists employ, and we use some things like mindfulness and spirituality to help people begin to come out of that cycle and get off that wheel. Is that important to you? Is that some of the tools you use as well?
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up, because I think the word accountability can maybe sometimes bring up some of that guilt and shame, or, I'm messing up here. And you're so right. And within coaching, it has very little to do with me, my opinions, my perspectives, my reflections, and much more to do with me being a safe space and someone to help them pull out what they already know to be true. And what I say to my clients about that space is I liken it to gardening, right? Or the natural world where we have seasons and we have to go underground. And if we don't go through that period of going underground, going fallow, letting the winter come over and just gestating for a little while, we just become machines. We just become robots. We just become empty paper bags. So the way to move forward is to allow ourselves those cycles of rest, and it will come over you again and again and again. But if you can embrace it and know the feeling, then you can move through that space and time and go through the healing and the rest and emerge more powerful.
In recovery, I'm a product of 12-step recovery, and that talks a lot about spirituality and also the movement of the universe. going with the movement, when we try to exercise our own control, when we try to move things faster than they're supposed to move, it never seems to work. I also think, as Mother Nature has a flow, the universe has a flow, the entire spiritual world has a flow. And when you understand that and can connect with that, then all things happen the way they're supposed to. Every single time we have tried to initiate our own will, control things faster than they need to be controlled, something happens that doesn't work for us. So spirituality is a really big thing. Now, I always tell people in mindfulness, wherever your feet are, that's where your brain has to be, correct?
Mhm.
How do you use mindfulness with your business clients?
I love that you used the analogy of feet, because that feeds into some of the things I do with my clients with regards to nature therapy, which is something that brings you back to your body, right? And so one of the exercises we'll move through is when you begin to feel overwhelmed or out of body, you take your shoes and your socks off and you go out and you put your feet in the soil. Now, I think most of us can kind of conceptualize how that might feel good, unless we hate having our feet in dirt. And also, there are studies to suggest that there are actually bacteria in the soil that are antidepressant. So when we put our feet or our hands in the soil, as in gardening, as in just a walk outside in the morning, it literally helps shift our bodies back into a space of regrounding and safety.
That's really amazing. And I'm glad you do that. Now, I want to get a little bit more specific because you chose to work as a business coach. Why business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That was something I struggled with for a while, because business is kind of boring, right? So I think I wanted to be back in that grand sweeping romantic space of floral. And at the same time, I ran a parallel career for 20 years as a marketing professional, a creative director. I had my own business for 6 years. So really my experience has been in working alongside what effectively are heart-led business owners, and would find so much of the time that we're talking about a logo one minute and the next minute they're in tears about feeling stuck. And recognizing that when we start anything that is connected to a dream, quite often a business is connected to a dream and a sense of self, there is so much that can get in our way. And because of the framework of business in our culture, we don't give ourselves permission all the time to have feelings about it.
You're absolutely right. And you've said some really interesting things. You said heartfelt businesses. That really is the way most people do not see business. Because it's cold, it's corporate, and it's unfeeling, and feeling shouldn't matter, and it just moves the wheel in so many different ways. But you're right, people that are entrepreneurial, that have their own business, that are putting everything into it. It's not only a business head, but it's an emotional situation that sometimes borders on a desperate need to do well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And I do think we confuse our small businesses and our entrepreneurial pursuits and our startups with corporate America, which is different. It's a different animal. And we are not corporations. We're human beings. Maybe we have some employees, but it might be less than 20 people. And so these are the humans that I'm working with. They tend to be ethos-driven. They're very principled, and everything about their business speaks to a real essential self. And where we get lost is when we step out of our bodies, out of our human selves within our business, and think that we're supposed to show up like a corporation. And it doesn't work.
So give us an example of some of the businesses that you work with.
Well, I work with one person in particular who is a wellness professional. She works within the wellness industry. And I think she's a great example of that because at times, her career began in corporate America. She was a corporate investment banker, right? And so she does have that block at times where she forgets why she's doing this. And it becomes more about what are the numbers? What are the statistics? What's the ROI? And the minute she steps into that space, I can see the heart just melt out of her and she gets into a very ego-driven space, like we talked about earlier, where you feel like you have to control everything and you forget that you don't have any control. And the better way to run a business is let go, let go, let go, right? Step into mindfulness, step into your intuition, step into your inner power and your inner voice. Lead from the heart and the soul. Don't lead from the mind so much. I mean, there's space and room for the mind, right? I love ROI as much as anyone. I love statistics. I love setting revenue goals. And also, how do you bring all of that world into this world of heart and spirit and body?
This is a very unique approach because most business coaches that go into a corporation are very concerned with 360 reviews and leadership and management and all of the things that take the heart out of business. So Genevieve's approach is vastly different. Do you work with your clients virtually?
Yes, I work with my clients virtually, particularly because, well, there's two reasons. One is very selfish. I want to live in a cabin out in the woods in the Pacific Northwest. So it's about a 2.5 hour drive in either direction to any major city where I am. The other is because I meet people worldwide. And so it's really beautiful and incredible to me to be able to connect with people from South Africa, from Italy, from Mexico City, and just be on a screen and still connect in this really soulful way that you wouldn't expect to find on a Zoom meeting.
Which means that Genevieve is available to you if you would like to work with her. Tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on my website at genevievehubbard.com, on Instagram at genevieve.hubbard, and at Easeful Business Coach.
That's fantastic. Okay. So let's talk about how all of this has helped you with your core values and strengths.
Yeah, so we talked at the beginning about reverse engineering your life, and that might pique some interest. It's something that came to me throughout my coaching training. You might be familiar with life design. But the idea is that you start with what are your core values and what are your core strengths? And for me, my core values are stability and peace. And I followed my bliss into a career that felt like it was taking over my life. I was never home. It was really very ego-driven. It was really very image-driven. And while that could be very fun and exciting, it felt off. And I felt very drained. And as a highly sensitive person, I need to have the capacity to have that quiet space that can nurture my system, nurture my nervous system. And so this career has given me the opportunity to root into my sense of intuition, my capacity to connect with others, and my values of stability and peace in the sense that I can help others find that within themselves and give themselves permission to reach for that. And sometimes that means we're in the wrong career, and that's okay.
Okay, so if we can encapsulate it here, we only have about a minute left or so. If you can encapsulate for me, living more, working less, to everybody out there, what would you tell them to do?
Put down your phone, close your computer at 5:30 sharp, and go outside.
And wait for the miracles to happen?
Yeah, just
Explore the sunshine, commune with nature.
give yourself space and quiet and time to reconnect. Get out of the chaos.
I am so thrilled that you are so peaceful and calm. You make it so comfortable for people, which is so unlike what people see in a business coach. Jenevieve, tell us again where to find you.
Yes, you can find me on my website at genevievehubbard.com, and you can visit me on Instagram at genevieve.hubbard.
If you want a business coach that is heart and spirituality and will take you to a brand new level, then please go find Jenevieve Hubbard. This is Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll see you soon. This is Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, saying thanks for listening, and remember, everybody needs a little push.
From the pushy broad from the Bronx.